You definitely cannot be a good creative if you don't look deep into yourself and question your points of view, and that's probably your everyday routine if you're a creative. Talking to people is a way for me to absorb different views, and I think my job, if I have to describe it, is to make sure that they all can take place in a free and inclusive environment. I need to make it easy for you to understand what you want to become and help you become that. Hi, I'm Guido, and Guido Tattoni. I'm the Dean of NABA and a sound artist and sound designer. That's how I describe myself normally. I went to London for my BA and MA, then I lived in Australia for a year in Byron Bay, a beautiful place along the coast. Then came back, did my PhD in UAL, still in the UK, and meanwhile I've been working for as a freelance sound artist and sound designer, also sound engineering. I know maybe it sounds all the same, but it's different works and different jobs. Along the university, I didn't plan to be a university person. When I was studying, I thought I would be touring with Red Hot Chili Peppers. That was my idea. It was the 90s, so I said, yeah, I want to be a live sound engineer touring with my favorite bands. And then I had an opportunity in a school called SAE Institute, where I also studied when I was a kid, when I was 20. And I started working as a lab assistant in the studio. And since then, I've been always having roles in the university of different sorts, sometimes more technical, sometimes more teaching, and then growing up with more responsibilities, like coordinating a course, being the campus manager for SAE Milan, and then having European responsibilities for the academics of the SAE network. And then I got a call from NABA, who offered me a position as a head of the Department of Design and Applied Arts. I don't come from design, actually, so studying sound design, don't imagine it's something like design. It's really totally different. So you don't study, the history of design and Italian design or product design. It's a completely different subject. So I thought it was very challenging. And I said, okay, let's go for it. And that was 2015. Then for 4 years, I led the department. We have 2 departments in NABA. And then the position of dean became available. So I applied for that. And now it's 4 years, I'm the dean. A musician, to me, it's more like a state of mind and a state of being that I don't really feel applied to myself, to be honest. Because I've met musicians and I see I'm different, so I don't usually say I'm a musician. I don't have that relationship with an instrument. I don't have that relationship with a role that music plays in my life. I don't know, I just don't feel like presenting myself as a musician. Also because I think music, I love music. I'm not planning to diminish the term music. Music is one part of sound and not the only one. So I see myself in a wider context in sound. So I like to make music, but I also like to make things that are not music with sound, or that people wouldn't define music sometimes. And we could talk about the definitions of music for hours. I have some favorite ones, but yeah. So. No, I wouldn't say I'm a musician. Normally a sound artist. I say sound artist. I meet a lot of people, and I think that's probably 80% of my job, to talk to people, to meet people. And I also think that that's the basically total, the main thing about education. So of course, I'm the head of an educational institution, so that implies, to reflect on what is education and how do you build a system. Well, I didn't build it. How do you run a system that is supposed to educate people, or to, obviously you need to have a lot of different perspectives. So one thing that I try to do is find a balance between what I think it's education and how I see it, because that's impossible not to have this sort of bias. But I think an institution's character doesn't come from the head. So, and I feel a sort of responsibility. I'm leading something that existed before I arrived. So I can play a role in it, I can have a part, but then it's also about understanding how the different perspectives on educations are in a place that big, so big as Nava. So talking to people is a way for me to absorb different views, and I think my job, if I have to describe it, is to make sure that they all can take place in a free and inclusive environment. Energy, because that's one part of my life, but I do a lot of many other things. So I sleep very little. I have to say, it doesn't drain energies, my job. I mean, of course, I'm tired at night, but I feel I really do feel it gives me energy. So when I wake up in the morning, I look forward to going to work. I'm very lucky for that. So depends on the day, I have to admit, and it's not always that we all do those meetings that we would never do, but still we do them. So there are days where you say, oh please, let's make it to the end of the day without losing my sanity. But most of the times I'm really happy to go and start my day here. So I think it's a sort of a source of energy, and I can feel I'm really using all my energies during my day. So I tend to arrive at night like flat. Different activities require and give different energies. So I don't have a recipe, but I think the balance between them is the key. So Nava, it's very relational and mental, like brain energy, because you need to concentrate and empathize with people a lot. So that's probably the main thing I do all day. Talking to people and trying to build a relationship that is working and fruitful and honest, and that takes energy. It gives me energies in seeing that I'm building relationships and things. If I go and play a volleyball game, because I like playing volleyball. The other day, it was a Saturday, I came from a work, from a work travel in the Netherlands. So I've been not doing any physical activity for a week, and I was like, I need to do something physical. So I played this game on a Saturday, and that gave me a lot of energies. I was completely worn out afterwards, but I was so refreshed mentally because I didn't apply my mind in that. And I do other things. Playing music for me, making music or sounds, it's a different kind of brain and emotional energy, different than the one I apply in my job. I do other things. I volunteer for an association, and that's really a different kind of focus. I work on ambulance emergency rescuing people, so like an emergency technician, probably that's what you call it. And that's an immediate focus that I really like, because it's something that I never feel that feeling in any other parts of my day, where being 100% onto something without allowing any distraction, because that's what people require from you if they call you. So, and apart from doing a good thing because you do it for free and you help people, it gives me this skill of wiping out everything and being on something full on. That's really something I feel. So a lot of different energy sources. We are changing a lot, so it's a really interesting time for the shape education is going to take, and there will be different shapes, because I see the debate is very lively and with different opinions, especially regarding the role of digital education or remote education or distance education, whatever we want to call it. That's probably the main topic. And there are a lot of subtopics that this raised, but I think that's the main one. So people pro or against distance education, it's a very, of course, reductive way to see the whole issue, but in short, we had to experiment with that, and we had to make it effective. We had no other choice. So we learned that it can be effective. Now I speak from a very NABA perspective of things that we experimented here. We involved a lot of students in order to understand what was working or what was not. We made something that we called an observatory on distance education during the pandemic. And it was this independent board with students and teachers only, who had the task of observing different styles of different teachers, collecting opinions from all sorts of bodies, and then report on what is working and what is not. And we found out that some things were even better in a way. I don't know if they were better because of the times, but people were not used to pandemics yet. So I think it was better because, I don't know, maybe at that age, sometimes students are shy in initiating debates or controversial opinions. So not everyone in class is very talkative. So when you ask a question like, and you would like in class, for somebody to go against what you say or to, give a different perspective, because that's what it's about in a lot of classes. Some people do. They enjoy doing that. Some others, no. Even if they do have different opinions, doing classes remotely helped a lot. I think these people who had more difficulties to be live in person to speak out, and we could see that was really an interesting effect. Some other people enjoyed the possibility to review contents in a different time. So maybe something I don't get, then I can review the class because we recorded them and gave away the recordings to them for reference. That's something that worked, although recordings created other problems in terms of not following, smoothly through the course, but leaving everything for the end. So we decided, also according to this report, that we wanted to keep some remote and online education, but for a limited set of subjects and limited kind of subjects, and to use digital tools in class to enhance in-presence education in a way that, especially where they help people interact if they have difficulty to interact without a digital tool. So for the remote part, we leave the more theoretical subjects online, meeting students once in a while for debating, even though they debate more easily online, what we saw. So we'll probably review this model. Project-based teaching, which is the majority of our teaching, sometimes has a component that it's done remotely. Sometimes the majority of it actually is in presence. And that depends on what you think education is, I think. We went through a phase in history where education was a transmission of information. Early 900s, if you were asking to people, what is education, they would say there are people who know things, and people who don't, and they need to, move this bulk of information into somebody else's minds and knowledge, because information was not available elsewhere. So you needed people to, tell you things, and the whole system of judgment and evaluation, in a lot of times, still now is based on this idea that there is some people who know and some people who don't know, and you need to make the people who don't know. And that's a bit old-fashioned in a way, because this way, of course, you can do everything online. If this is what you mean for education, then of course you can transmit information very effectively in many ways, even via radio. Or you don't really need all the times visuals, but I think we are in an era where education now needs to be different because of two reasons. Information is really available. So to go to an institution and to take on such an effort, because it is, to go to university just because you want some information, I don't think it makes any sense. Because okay, people can select information for you if you think information is too many and you're not reliable. So okay, that could be. But I think if you care about it, even as a student, you can find your way through correct information and fake news or misleading information. So it's a fake problem. If you don't do it, it's because maybe you don't really want to do it. So what is education then? If information is part of the game, because sometimes it's more effective if I tell you, I can again curate a selection of information that I think it's relevant for some reason. But first of all, it must be understood by both parts that this is not the whole. This is not all that there is to know about one thing. So in a design course, I will tell you I will give you some information, but that's because I think it's relevant for this course I'm planning to have with you, not because that's everything you need to know about design. It will never be like that. So nobody should expect that a university course give you everything there is to know about anything, especially in project-based courses. The rest, which is the majority, I think, it's relationships. I'm really, really into this relationships building thing, because I think that's what university should give you. The ability you need, after all, if you need to work in an environment, if you need to work with people, if you need to relate to other people, and being an artist, there's no way you can't relate to the world. That's what you need to learn. So the experience you have in university has to be about the world and about the people and the relationships, and not about the information. Of course, we have our generation of students who are very much into digital relationships, because they've been to high school for 2 years in distant education. And we are, that's not a professional point of view, because I'm not a psychologist, but an experiential fact that I see in my daily life. I see a lot of difficulties that they have in relating to people now. So what's the word? How much these relationships that they have developed between their 15 and 18 years digitally are formative and allow them to, face the world. In some cases, I don't think they were so effective. It's very much attached to that. It's to build a relationship with you. If I have to say one thing, it is then to expand is, of course, this relationship is built around something that the teacher's experiences or knows in his professional life or her professional life. And I think it should facilitate you into tackling that discipline and make it yours. And on the contrary, it's easy for me to define with an opposite example. I don't think a teacher should shape you in a way that they think it's the shape you should get to. That's not the teacher's role. Your shape is your shape, in a way. There could be a perimeter. We say, we play a game, and that's in this class we experience one subject, one field of study. Of course, we don't talk about other things. So, of course, it's a confined level of experience. That's fine. But within these boundaries of, we're teaching history of design or whatever, or sound art or whatever it is, how are you going to become? That's up to you. I need to understand that. I need to make it easy for you to understand what you want to become and help you become that. Probably this need of developing a sense of yourself in the world that maybe other subjects don't necessarily require. I'm not that sure though, because I also think that it's a common misunderstanding that if you're creative, then you need to have an opinion on things, and if you are not creative, then you can go on and study something that is more mnemonical. But I also think in disciplines like maths or theoretical physics, there is a lot to to give if you see things out of the box. So I'm very fond of scientific education as a way to place yourself in the world, and not just as a way to describe laws that are not questionable. Anyway, maybe in creative disciplines you are more required to express something, or to your, let's say, brick and mortars are emotions and feelings, and something that it's less definable and more subjective in a way, more blurred in terms of what you deal with. So it probably requires a better, not a better understanding, but it requires to find your way through the everyday, and develop a perspective, and have a good relationship with yourself so that you can express it in a way. And I think also that to relate to yourself honestly, for artists, for everyone, it's essential. and if that doesn't happen, we can see the consequences in society. But if we talk about disciplines only, I don't know, probably you can be a very good accountant even if you are not honest with yourself, I don't know, or a good engineer, or a good lawyer, or maybe not. But you definitely cannot be a good creative if you don't look deep into yourself and question your points of view and And that's probably your everyday routine if you're a creative. Logic is I don't see it opposed to creativity. Logic is part of it's a language. It's something we need to relate to other people because we need a common ground. Fine, like the spoken language. So we use logic to explain things that are too long or too difficult to explain without the logic, or so it's a model. Like the basic physics that we study, I don't know the English terms because I studied physics in Italian, but when you study movement, you learn how a point in space, speed, movement, and time. That never happens in nature like that. There are always a million variables that change and make that equation wrong. We made a model that simplifies reality so that we can understand it and grasp it. But then we know it's interesting because we develop something that is always wrong. Nothing in nature moves off moto rettilineo uniforme or whatever it's called. Maybe things in space where there is no gravity and no attrition, I don't know. But still, we rely on a model that we know it's wrong, but it's that simple that we use it because this way we can understand. Logic is something we need to, I think, understand also each other. So it's not against creativity. We do have disciplines that are more logical. They normally are within the computer science sort of realm. Apart from the philosophical ones, of course, we can you can approach logic also in philosophy, not only in computer programming. On the practical side, we approach it more through computer programming, whether it is UX, or it is maybe we do a generative music course at night. It's optional. We also do a game design or game development, interactive installations. We teach software that it's logic based, like Touch Designer or Max MSP, all these sort of generative and procedural design software. You need logic to understand them or to make yourself understood by them, whatever you want to say it. Because of course now AI, everyone is using it. And 5 years ago when AI started being available, it was available only to people who knew how to program a script in order to upload a data set or whatever. So you needed to know a language that was not everybody's language. So a lot of people did not use them and they didn't think it would have been something that would came out so broadly one day. But now it did. So now it's really, it's really a chat or an interface that everybody can use without almost any education at all. So because the debate was so lively, I mean, mainly today's debates are around how those AIs are trained. So if they use my material, what do I get from that? A lot of visual artists are making even petitions to sort of have their rights recognized or their credits when their images train an AI and it gives out something that it's not theirs, but it's the result of a training based on other people's work. And the other debate is it fair to use it in a school? And I really don't get. I mean, I get where this comes from, but talking about education in the terms that we used, I don't think we, as an art institution, should approach things with censorship ever. Especially tools and technology and progress with critical sense, of course, yes, but that doesn't mean closure. It's different. So you don't close yourself to new things. Just, in my view, you embrace them. You try to experience and to make it, and then it's the use you make of them that changes. It's not the tool. So the tool itself, it's neither mean or good. They don't have any intention. It's a marketing thing that they want to. It helps selling the service to if people think that it can actually have a will or intentions or feelings even, but they don't. They would never have these. They can be complex algorithms that we don't understand. So like witchcraft in the and medicine, people who practice a particular science that was so difficult to understand were seen as magicians. So they believed to have magical powers. And it's the same thing. Just because we don't understand how the thing works, it doesn't mean that it has, human capabilities or superhuman even capabilities. maybe we just don't see the technicalities, but that's not a problem. I mean, you can use it, and like a car, you know, not everybody's a mechanic, but everybody drives. So, or many people does. So we did yesterday an event, an internal event, because some of us are using AI since more time. Some others, they just, you know, got into the huge debate and say, what do we do with that? Can I speak about it in class, or is it forbidden? Because a lot of people ask me for rules, even from teachers. Can I do this? Or am I allowed to do that? So, I mean, of course, you should be allowed to talk in class of whatever you think it's useful. So we would never make a rule like, don't use this tool in class. So we decided to show, we put together like 10, 15 of our faculty to show examples of what they do in class with ChatGPT or Midjourney or other engines. And last night we had this event, so we do some aperitivi. So after work at 6:30, but a lot of people responded, like we were 70 of our faculty listening to each other, and the debate was really huge, people discussing things. And I think that gave us a perspective on how to, you know, how we could use these tools in class and how we could, you know, show students our perspectives on those. And one thing that was interesting to see last night, one of our teachers said, I wanted to use ChatGPT the way my students would use it. And I was like, how do you know how they would use it? I mean, it's your idea of how they would use it. And there were two students in, because we were chatting just before, so I said, if you want to come in and see, you know, what teachers do in their free time, and they came, also for the drinks, I think, but and they were like, well, we don't use it that way. So it was very interesting, because it also gave us a perspective on what students do that we think they do in a way, and maybe they don't. Maybe even too much. I see the bright side when I should see so sometimes I tend to see the side that I would like to see. Being optimistic, I would like everything to be, you know, always positive, and sometimes it's not. And I'm trying to find good things even if, you know, there aren't. But in this case, I don't think I am too positive. I'm very neutral on that, because I mean, I have a degree in computer science. So I only took it because I wanted to work with computers and sound. So I wanted to understand deeply how they worked. So I'm very neutral about the tool, meaning that it's a tool. It's a tool that has a bias, like every tool, like a camera, like your eyes, or so you can use a tool. And when an artist uses a tool, of course, they want to build a relationship with this tool. Every artist, you know, from a musician to a photographer, whoever uses something to create, couldn't create what they do without their tools. So you work with them in a way. So I like to see that as a cooperation, not as a hierarchical relationship, like you are at my disposal, you know, I use you, and not because AIs have this feel of being more human, but also like probably, you know, if you work with a camera, you really like your camera, you treat it like, you know, your little child, and I don't know if you hug it or but you care about it. And I think, I don't know, that's what I do with my instruments. I develop a relationship, not an affective one all the times, but it's like, let's work together and do something. And of course the instrument changes what I produce, because if I use a different one, or if I work with a different one, then the result is different. And I think AI, it's the same. It's a tool. You can use it. You can use, I don't know, Photoshop. It's a tool, and you can use it to make your life easier and quickly make a photo collage that looks real. And because you didn't want to put up a set and shoot a real photo, does it make it a bad use of it? I don't know. Maybe sometimes that's, you know, the only thing you can do. So if you, I don't know. I mean, it's the way you use it. Not always. I tend to be more realistic. You see, because I see people around that are really far from grasping. I'm not saying the right side. I'm not saying that there is a right or wrong side, but there are facts, and there are attitudes of being open and of being, you know, sensitive to things, and I see this missing. And this probably leads you to, think in a way that it's a little bit out of reality. Sometimes, like denying that there is a climate change. That's something I know that I hardly see under debate. Like, and if you try to debate on that, it's like debating on if the Earth is flat or not. So if I see so many people that really, and sometimes to do this, to deny reality or to pretend that reality is different, is seen as to have a critical approach, and it's not the same thing. Critical approach doesn't mean to, deny facts that are, already established. It means, and you don't really have a critical views on facts. You have it on opinions and on things that happen, events, and this being against reality sometimes is seen as because I'm being critical. And you don't see, if you were more open-minded and you would put everything under question. I'm not saying that I don't question climate change. I don't question that there is a problem of sustainability in the world. To put that under question is a political act that tries to minimize it for many reasons, maybe because you are egoistic or because you don't want to see it, because life is easier if there are no problems. So if to live with the fact that people starve, I think it's difficult. To deny it because you say it's all a complotto, it's all a plot for the high powers to keep us, distracted from the real problems, that's a way out for you not to deal with that. So in this, I'm not too optimistic. We need a bigger strike for people to realize some of the things they are denying now. Ethics. It's a very big question. What are the principles that guide the ethics of an institution? Of course, we wrote them down, and we have it's called like a code of conduct. So basically, what is acceptable and what is not in an institution. And I have to say, it's very basic, because it's a legal framework in a way that you establish. That it's like the Constitution. So it's very high level. So obviously it's about discrimination, against discrimination, of course. It's about the kind of behavior that is allowed or tolerated. For example, we do not tolerate aggression in any way, or like the code of conduct tries to. It's more for the workplace than for the academic institution. Then the academic institution is based on principles that are also go beyond the basic ethics of living together in a safe and inclusive environment, which I think should be the basic. Probably it's not like this everywhere, because there are environments where these ethical principles are thrown to pieces and not respected. And things that are not written are like the way you approach people. Like, for example, being respectful of other people, it's one thing you can say, but it encompasses a lot of things that you don't always list in a document. Like, so how do you behave when you have diverging opinions, or accepting or resolving conflicts, or approaching conflicts, or using conflicts as a way to discover new things. Rarely these things go in a document that is a legal framework, but I think they are present. And in an educational institution, I think it's important to also be a model of an ethical behavior. That can. Now I'm talking only about relationships, but it can also go to sustainability and the way you work and the way you use, for example, money coming from students. So there are a lot of ethical issues related to being in an educational institution. Like in my daily job, for example, I consider ethical to. I have to administer resources. Like I have a budget, and resources meaning also labor, like people who work and dedicate their time and knowledge to something, and money that I have to spend in order to make things work. And I feel this, and sometimes I talk to students a lot about Because we have a lot of occasions where we meet with them, especially in a sort of a Q&A. We do a lot of aperitivi here because we like to keep it informal. Because we can talk about roles later if you want, but meeting students, I think we both should make an effort to speak each other's language. So while it's okay, it's good if they make an effort to speak with us, not as they speak with their friends in a pub. So we keep a language that is different from the one, and so for them most of the times this is an effort, but we also have to make an effort, and we can't just say that you should come all the way towards an institutional language that sometimes is difficult and not effective. So we try to keep things informal. So we do this aperitivi where we just offer drinks and we can discuss things like at a table. And when they ask me, why don't we do this? Why doesn't NABA do this? Or why don't we organize that? And why? And I say, it's probably because of our choices. Then I take the responsibility as a person. Obviously, we decide things collectively here, but why don't we have this software for free? That was one of the big questions that we had. And I say, you can, but you also need to understand, I have some money, you gave me some money to spend. Part of this money, because we only live with your fees, so it's actually that you make sort of a collective pot. You give this money to me and you want back some other things. And I need to choose what give you with the money you gave me. Part of this money will go to have the institution running. We pay rent, we pay bills. It's a private institution, so the owners want a share of their profits. So part of this, and I say that very openly to them, they need to understand what happens. So you gave me 100 euros among all of you. A part of it, it's pocketed by the owners by default, and that's how capitalism works and private entrepreneurship works. So there is no reason to deny it because that's what it is. The rest of it, it's for you. So you've never had this software for free because, for example, it would cost, I don't know, 50k. Of course, we have 50k to spend for you, but then I'll probably need to not do some other things to give you that software. So it's priorities. So we can establish your priorities together, but at some point we need to make a choice. We don't have endless money. So would you prefer the software, or would you prefer to have, I don't know, free study trips in Europe, to make a choice? Sometimes I think, and I choose for you because I can't ask you anytime. So I use my common sense and the best of my understanding of your needs to make these decisions for you. And that's what is ethical to me, to go back to that. So I try to choose considering them. Sometimes I can see that we make mistakes and we think that they care about having something and then they don't really care that much. And so to keep a dialogue open on that, I think also it's a duty that an institution should have, because most of the times things are decided without consulting the end users of your decisions, the one that pay the most consequences. So we can improve on that. Because I can see that there are things that we can do better in terms of dialogue and also the way we use resources. In big organizations, sometimes it's easy to see effectiveness, not always to the highest standards. But it's a process, so at least we try to identify the problems we have, because like every organization, we are good at some things and not as good at some other things, and we try to be better at other things we are not that good now, and I think that's also an ethical duty for everyone. Well, yes, in Italy and all around the world, I always make students laugh when I say we have a WhatsApp chat of all the deans of the Italian Fine Arts Academy. It's a very boring chat, let me say that. One can imagine it's really like, what could be discussing deans in a WhatsApp chat? Mostly things from the ministry. Do you understand these? No, I don't, because actually that's what happens. Did you get that document? No, how come you get it and I don't? And things like that. So it could be fun from a sort of perspective, but also very boring because it's all about this bureaucracy. We do have a lot of partnerships around different activities, courses, international projects. One thing we did that was my sort of fixation, we can call it. It's about research in the arts. That is something I could speak on for hours, and it's sort of a political view that I have for an institution like ours around this subject, that it's very also debated. Very briefly, then you tell me if you want me to expand. Italy doesn't have a research framework for the arts, basically. So the research, as intended, it's reserved to universities, that are institutions that have specific rules and who do not teach arts practice. So academies and conservatories are a different thing. They are at the same level, so you can get a degree from us, but it's a different regulation. Like, you can do a PhD in NABA for now, I'm saying. You can do a PhD in a conservatoire, you can do a PhD in any art institution, because simply they cannot be accredited. There is no system where I can ask our government, can I please organize a PhD course? I cannot even ask the question. There is no channel for that. And that's outrageously wrong, I think. Especially for Italy, that is traditionally an art-based country and a cultural operator in the world and scene, like few others. So that needs to change, in my views, because it's impossible that we cannot innovate practice in Italy. So basically, what they are saying, without letting us do research courses in Italy, is art practice in Italy is not being innovated. It's only innovated the critics, the history, philological, what you do in universities, which is very important. I'm not saying it's not, but practice is another thing. So you can research in history of art, you can research in history of performance, you can research and find new knowledge in performance practice. Because at least in a legal framework, formal university framework. So to fight that, because I think that's really why I say it's political, because it's something that needs to change in the art system in Italy. We decided to do two things. First of all, we set up a research center in NABA, and very few academies in Italy have one. With people dedicated to that, with resources dedicated to that. Normally it's upon the goodwill of some faculty who, I also do some research, but we wanted to make a structure. And through this, we applied to a lot of grants around Europe with international partners, and we won many. So we got funds to do research in a country where this should not even be allowed. And that's how we also got into this positioning internationally of relationship with other universities that brought us to be very well reputed in, for example, in the rankings. So we rank highest Italian institution in the most important ranking that is based on academic reputation, because we put together relationships. Again, it's all about relationships and people who talk and make projects with other institutions around Europe. And this year, I was actually, at the end of last year, there is an organization, it's called ELIA. It's a network of, it's a European League of Institutions of Art. So it brings together more than 200 institutions in Europe that teach art in many forms. And I was elected in the board. It's 14 members, and we, as NABA, are represented in the board of the most important network of European institutions. So, and that's also about relationships, because we got to know each other, and they told NABA. So if you look from the same window all the time, you only see that corner of the world. I think it's better to look around. So you see the world differently through architecture than through music. And no one is righter than the other. Probably there is no real discipline that makes you see the world, like even physics. It's a way to see the world, but not necessarily is the one that gives you the whole, all that there is to know. I remember myself as a kid, or maybe it was simply a different way. I think I've always been sensitive. So by that I mean a connection with your emotional side. But to that's to put myself into other people's shoes. Really, it's something that came with probably with age or with maturity or with experience. I don't know, but not. I didn't have it. I don't think I was born with it. I think probably that's the right thing. Through a different set of experiences, that were living abroad was really open-minding. I think that was, if I have to name a few, living in a different country definitely helped me change my mind. There was some of the things that I remember very formative. Who was it? I mean, I think it was a Russian writer who said that the most dangerous people are the one who experience so bad things that nothing scares them anymore. Well, it could be that, but I'm not talking only about difficulties. I mean, of course, like everyone, I've had my difficulties. They help you. Also good experiences. I mean, living abroad to me was a struggle at first because it's, going out your comfort zone. But all in all, like looking back, I see the good, like it was a very good experience. Through relationships, we tend to call new people, people we know, it's, again, more of a collective decision, but normally, let's say, a typical situation, we have more students than we thought, so we need to have an extra group of people, so we need, we have an extra set of hours to cover, and we need a person to do it. So then, okay, who do we call? And for example, we have a course leader. Every course has a person who oversees all these needs. And say, okay, well, I know this designer for, let's say, design, who I've worked with once. I liked her, and she does this thing that we don't do in other courses because we tend, like for example, if we have 300 new students, let's say, in a design next year. We make 10 groups, 30 people roughly, 35 maximum. We don't want to make them all the same. Like they have the same sort of high-end objectives, but the road to them, it's okay if that's different. That's part of the things we said before. So it's not like a stamp made that everyone does the same thing every day because the program must be exactly the same from one group to the other. Actually, we like to differentiate because, again, there's not only one road to the same objective. So you can get to that destination in many ways. So sometimes a choice is, because this artist or designer does this thing in a way that we don't have. So let's, ask them if they want to, come and teach it, and then we meet them, and then every course leader has an area leader, so somebody who oversees all the courses in that area, it's good to be in a dialogue, sort of dynamic when it comes to these decisions. Also, it helps not to have any bias because, again, maybe it's a friend of yours, and there's nothing against that, but it's good if you have a counterpart that tells you, yeah, well, why don't you call this other person that I know and we choose together. So bias, it's good when, because I never doubt that there is a good intention in calling somebody but maybe there are other people who are, more adapt to this particular thing. So that's one criterion. Normally are people who work and have experience in that particular area, and that they have something to say. We like opinionated teachers rather than neutral. I don't think you can be neutral anyway. So it's if you say you're neutral, I think you're denying something, and I don't know, that would be a point of view that I would say, I'd be very doubtful that you're neutral. And why, anyway, are you neutral?